Welcome to another occasion that is the Datnexa Podcast. And today we are joined with, again. the mighty Anthony Fawkes of Actually Data Analytics, the king of, I was going to say king of bling, but it's not bling.
Absolutely not, definitely not.
The rocket of Pocket, I think.
The rocket of Pocket,
yeah.
Hey.
Pocket is very cool. So tell, what is Pocket and where did it come from?
So it was one of my significant birthdays a couple of months back. And Helen was struggling to work out what to buy me as a present. And the joys of Instagram and seeing various things, she saw an ad for Pocket, and it's basically a little credit card size type thing that will record voice. Yeah. And so you can attach it to your phone, and it will record your phone calls, so you can actually transcribe your phone calls. So I can now take this anywhere. So when I'm having random meetings with random people, like Helen in the pub, and we decide to start building on strategy after the first bottle of wine. Yeah, that's what happens. The Pocket comes out, and then I don't have to remember all of the drunken conversations that I've had. It's just a case of this is how it is. And then I go back, and this is what you said, this is what you agreed to, and it's like, okay.
Accountability is important.
It is very important.
But you've got, and you were saying that you've once the transcript's done, you've built an agent that just turns it into, just does stuff with it.
Yes. So basically, I've started messing around with Claude Cowork. Yeah. And it's really neat. It's really annoying about the limits, but it's really neat when you get it going. Yeah. So I've been building some microservices, micro apps type thing to make my life easier as a self-employed consultant. Yeah. So one of the things that I did was do a transcript to action project. And basically what that does is that takes any of the transcripts that I've got from any of the calls that I take, whether that be a Teams meeting, whether that be a Zoom meeting, whether that be a Pocket conversation like now, and it will convert it, and it will tell me, it will give me an email that I can send to the customer to say, this is what we discussed, these are the points, these are the actions. But it will also look at it in terms of content and go, these are the things that you were talking about with Adam. These are the things that might be useful in craft. These are the things that might be useful as training guides, as resources, as micro apps and services that we can think about as part of analytics products or as part of craft.
That's amazing.
It's really cool. I really like it.
It's also that it's a great example of where you can really use AI to just speed stuff up. And it's like, before you would be, hang on, like, as you say, perhaps there are some conversations you don't remember everything that you said you were going to do. Yeah. Then there's the thing of like writing up the notes. Then there's putting it into something. Then there's doing that. And actually, I think with things like emails, that idea of just being able to go, give me the first draft, saves a huge amount of time, and then you can kind of get it.
Exactly
get
that.
It out there.
Exactly that. And I did. This is completely top secret. I was running training sessions last week, and
we are recording this.
Okay,
good.
That's fine. I was running training sessions last week, and hot off the press, one of the things that, as always with training sessions, people wanted to do was just record the session for people who weren't present at the training session.
Yeah, sure.
So again, with the idea of the transcript to action, I took the transcript of the training session and have built a training companion for the CRM modules that I was training on last week.
Oh, that's nice.
So now there's just like snippet bites that we can actually just deliver. And it just proves the power of AI when you're actually thinking about all of the different use cases. Yeah. The people who are the most dangerous right now are the people who think and who are curious. Because there's no limit to what you can do with AI. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff where it's, they say it's asymmetrical, don't they? So it allows you to do, like one person can do the work of 10 sort of thing. And actually being more nimble can be nimbler, means that you can actually do, you can achieve a lot more. You can have a much far bigger impact than a large organisation trying to get its, act together sort of thing.
That's exactly it. I mean, the whole concept for this training thing was just a proof of concept. Yeah. I had no idea what was going to happen. It was just like, I've just spent an hour or a couple of hours doing training sessions. Yeah. That's essentially collateral that I would need to build. Okay, there's some PII stuff in it that we need to worry about, but again, with AI, you can say just rip out all of the identifying information.
It is. It's a bit like we've started looking at stuff where we are for reusable tools that you can just reuse again and again and again. And it's amazing. So like redaction's one, actions is another, and you can kind of start seeing these. So there's a lot of services out there that you can go and get that kind of do bits of it.
Yeah.
But the idea that, because people often ask, what's the best thing that I can do like practically to begin with? And actually a lot of it is just think about what you want it to do, and then give it a go, I think is often...
Just think about the top 3 pain points that you have. So as part of this training session, I was training a visually impaired person. And one of the things about the CRM system that I was training on was it's not accessible.
Not many of them are.
Exactly.
Especially of certain vintages of CRM in the third sector.
Exactly.
Not accessibility was never a consideration.
Well, yeah, exactly. It didn't exist in VB6.
No.
Bless. Yeah. But yeah, so what I did was I had a conversation with my AI and said, this is an issue. This is an issue that's causing people to not use a CRM system. How do we get around it? And the answer was a Chrome extension.
Oh, wow.
And so in the space of 6 hours, I built a Chrome extension that now makes that CRM system accessible.
That's incredible.
It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
That is, so 6 seconds.
And don't get me wrong, again, it's a prototype.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I don't know. I'm not visually impaired.
Yeah.
I guarantee there will be problems with it for every visually impaired person.
Yeah.
But bearing in mind the vendor hasn't done anything about it.
Yeah, yeah. But also
it's the start of a solution.
It's the thing of, I mean, like we realised quite early on with AI projects, get that first prototype into people's hands and then have an extended user acceptance testing period instead of trying to design everything up front.
Yeah.
You know, vibe coding and stuff, vibe coding, someone described to me the other day, is a bit like gambling, that you're not entirely sure what you're going to get and stuff like that. But I think if you're vibe coding and you are a coder, then that, greatly increases the odds of success. And
I think one of the things I would say there is if you are vibe coding, the first thing you need to know is how to debug code.
Yeah.
And how to do proper user acceptance testing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, like the user acceptance testing helps to test the functionality, test the code, like really safely go through stuff as much as possible, find the edge cases that are the atypical bits.
Yeah.
But then also there's a lot of contextual stuff that you then layer on top of it. So, quite often we'll deploy something and then it can be like, oh, it's not working. But is it not working in terms of, is the AI engine itself, is the LLM doing something funny, or is it the code that's wrong, or is it that information isn't in there, or is it that there's something else going on? And there's a lot to dig through.
There's a lot of stuff I've started recently writing again on Substack.
Oh yeah.
And it's more strategic thinking. So one of the things that I started talking about was the advent of testing and saying there are 3 key things in terms of testing. There's, does the system work? Can you do your functional work? And then there's the data side of things. And those 3 things are 3 separate things that normally just get wrapped up into one, and people get confused and will sign off a project to go, yeah, I've done my testing. It's like I've seen Anthony Fawkes is Anthony is in the first name field and Fawkes is on the surname field. So the data must be right and the system works because that's a contact. If only that was the only part of your job.
Yeah. I mean, testing's not the funnest part often, but
but again, that's the advent of AI. How do you make it fun? How do you do things like leaderboards in terms of what are the things? There's some real gamification stuff that you can do with testing.
But also it's where testing is actually, you get the benefit of the tool itself. And, especially with the UAT pieces. And it can be, if you're looking at like AI assistants, it can be, is the tone of voice right? Or, there's a lot of bits that you can kind of unpick. But you can do that as part of a very heavily caveated usage period where you're also seeing, is it actually helping me, the functional piece of it.
Yeah.
It also kind of takes away that sort of requirements up front that are so numerous and big that actually it means you don't get anything going. and it's kind of you can start to, as long as you know what you want it to do. You know, you don't need, because you're not entirely sure where that solution is going to end up sometimes. So
but I think one of the things that AI has helped me do is I am curious by nature. One of my parents will both say, up until probably the age of 2, first word out of my mouth was why. And it just continued. And it's like, I need to understand why this is the way it is. So with vibe coding, and I've done some vibe coding, and I've built.
You have the look of a vibe coder.
I've done some vibe coding. I've enjoyed my time vibe coding. I've been deeply frustrated in some of the things that I've vibe coded.
Yeah, it does have that element.
But there are times when I've started out and gone, I think it's this, but I want to talk to you as a friend and colleague and bounce around ideas about what you think the right solution for this thing might be.
Yeah.
And again, AI is absolutely amazing for that type of thing.
It's very fast. It listens to what you say, and it kind of replies with something quite comprehensive.
Yeah, so long as you actually make sure that your prompt says, don't just agree with me.
Yes.
That's just really annoying.
It is, it is a thing. And actually, that I think one of the key bits of, getting the most from it is almost the more you use it, the more you kind of get to know its foibles and kind of how it's firing and stuff like that. And you like the frustrating moments when you're like, oh, hang on, I've asked you to do this, but you've just, taken that, interpreted it in a particular way, and then now we need to go back and rewrite all of this stuff, and then you end up in a place where it's like, shall I just start from scratch again?
But that's a really interesting thing, because again, that's one of the things that I'm finding with lots of people who are using AI. They're doing the setup when they first get into the AI, whether that's in Copilot and setting up their instructions, or ChatGPT or Claude. And they're doing it when they set up their project. But you know yourself, your life changes. What you thought 6 months ago, 12 months ago. Yeah. It's like I say to everybody, Helen and I got married near 21 years ago. He says, just having had his wedding anniversary. 21 years ago. Do you know what happened on the same day we got married?
No.
The very first YouTube clip was launched in the UK.
Wow.
It's 23rd of April, 2005.
Wow.
2005. That's what we're talking about. Life has moved on so quickly. We don't remember life before YouTube, but it was there. We remember the old dial-up telephones and standing at a phone box and all of that jazz. And it's just to show how fast technology has moved on. But the point that I'm making is you should, on a regular basis, come back and revisit what you've put in your statements, what you've put in your actions, in your instructions. And if you're doing things like I do journaling, so every now and then, my journal is written without a shadow of a doubt in my voice. I am willing to use that on a local LLM to go, tell me what my tone of voice is and how my tone of voice has changed over the last 12 months. And it's really interesting.
Yeah. Do you then use that to write things for work, or is that just more to know how your tone of voice has changed?
I use it mainly for blogging content. So being able to do first draft content. And I'm finding I'm getting much better at it because, again, I'm doing a quarterly review of what my tone of voice looks like and words and phrases and stuff like that. And then just building on that knowledge. So
that sort of thing of like periodically reviewing or kind of starting again there's this sort of idea as like AI is digital labor. It's like the digital member of the team. And that sort of piece of, well, once you've gone, I kind of think like, so if the vibe coding is the interview process and the UAT is the probation period and the onboarding period, you wouldn't then go, right, well, I'll see you again in never. You'd be like, well, your first performance review is in 3 months and we'll do this. And, kind of running it through. And the flip side of that coin is also where you look at, if you're deploying it at scale, that, what happens if you've picked a model that's really expensive and then, you're like, oh, hang on, this we've just onboarded someone who costs like, 15 grand a second. What have we, not quite, but, it's that sort of thing. How do you...
And again, I mean, as you know, I work a lot in the charity sector and we have a high turnover of staff. It's exactly the same thing with your AI.
Yeah.
You don't want that member of staff that you are getting to do new technology with to just be there for forever, because they'll miss all of the nuance and all of the new stuff that's come out in the last X number of days, weeks, months, years.
It's a balance, isn't it? You want the kind of the situational awareness and the contextual awareness of the organisation balanced with that wider like horizon scanning and kind of external input, and that idea of challenging the way that we do things around here and elements like that. Yeah. But that's kind of the digital labour bit. But I recently read something of yours talking about more how you need to change as a team, or how you need to get strategy, like kind of upstream of the technology to get the most from it. What was that about? Because I recently read it, but I didn't read all of it. I read the first bit, and I was like, that's interesting. I must ask you about it.
Thanks, Adam.
Off you go.
That's all right. Yeah. So again, as per usual with most of my writing, it's based on a conversation I was having with a customer or potential customer, and they were basically implementing a platform CRM solution and worried about how much money they were spending on the team.
Yeah.
And it was like, we've got a data scientist who costs X and then wanted to know, is this the right structure for the team? And it's like, that one person is probably what we're used to as a team of people for a non-platform solution. And if you're relying on a vendor to work as part of your organization, you need to understand how much that's likely to cost.
Yeah.
And so if you rip up the standard playbook and go, what is it we actually need as a data team to be able to do? And there's, like I've said before, there are 3 key parts to any data team's piece of work. There's business as usual. So that's your imports, your data selections, your standard stuff, data quality, all of that jazz. That's your standard stuff. You've then got projects, which is, we're going to onboard a new platform. We're going to change the way, we're going to try a new reactivation program. We're going to engage supporters in a different way. Yeah. That's your project type stuff. Normally that's cross-organizational. So you're normally putting teams together. And then the last bit is emergencies. And one of the things I did in a data strategy piece recently is just explain the nuance in terms of the way that people ask questions and just how that's interpreted by those 3 different people. And it's that type of thing. It was looking at the team, and in terms of when you're onboarding a platform is very different to an off-the-shelf CRM solution because it needs maintenance, it needs looking after. There'll be regular updates and stuff. There'll be things that are built. I normally say when you've got platforms, some of the platforms that are out there are like building with Lego. And so you change your business process, somebody's going to tear down your Lego and you're going to have to start again. And it's like, what skill set do you need to be able to do that? And so the piece I wrote about was, how much does it realistically cost to have a decent database team? And we were only talking, 3-4 people within the team. Yeah. And the other side of that is within the sector I work in, within fundraising and charities, the database team is sunk cost. They're not revenue generating 9 times out of 10. And so therefore you need to think about that really carefully when you're going, I need to buy a data scientist, a head of data, an insight person, a data officer, all of those roles. And so that's where that piece was born out of. It was born out of, to get a decent type of team for platform CRM solutions, you're looking somewhere between 120 and 200K in terms of salary cost. And that should give you enough grounding to be able to do 50% BAU, 50% projects, and hopefully 10% emergencies. But there are some organisations where those numbers change.
The blend is different.
Yeah, exactly.
That is, it's.
So that's what that piece was about.
That is interesting. No, I'll go back and read that. Sounds good.
It was, like I say, it was just a different way. I mean, there was one organisation I've worked with, one close friend of mine, who set up a different way of thinking about team structure. So whereas in charities you've got a database team and you've got an individual giving team and you've got a major donor team, he changed the way that organisation, he changed his perception of how that organisation was going to work to do, we acquire supporters, so let's build a team that can acquire supporters So you actually get a proper agile team. So you get somebody from digital, somebody from individual giving, somebody from database. We've got acquisition, we've got content, we've got retention. And he built a matrix type solution rather than just having flat team structure.
In a way that I think that sort of approach will be more prevalent.
I'd love, and this is going to be fairly controversial when I say this, and probably going to get me into hot water, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'd love to see a place where digital teams don't exist.
I agree. Your hot take is good. It's
always a good start.
It is. I always thought, when the telephone first arrived, you'd have a room full of people organising cables into different sockets to put calls through.
Yep.
All the way through to, well, actually, I've just got a phone in my pocket. Like, the idea of having a telephone exchange room seems bizarre. When you look at, like, in terms of our own day-to-day lives, like, you don't have a digital assistant, a digital butler or something to manage your social media or whatever. And I think the nature of work is that organisations try to have a division of labour in order to better scale and organise and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I always felt that the best sorts of digital teams were the ones that didn't gatekeep.
Yeah.
But nor were evangelistic. There's an idea of stewardship.
Yeah.
To kind of train people, to help them along, to support people. Because, the thing with AI is that we've just noticed the closer it can be delivered to the front line, to where it's being needed, the better. So it goes to your point of, like, just have a go, just get in there and kind of work through. Too often, I think, the nature of the technology has meant that you've had to centralise. Because, not everyone writes code, for instance. So you need to have a coder. You need to have someone who learns that language.
Yeah.
Maybe you move into a CMS, then more people can use it, but you'd want some champions who kind of understand how the content's structured and things like that. There's a lot of this stuff that's being unpicked at the moment.
Yeah.
But what is kind of persistent and coming through is, if you all know what it is that you're trying to do, having the broadest group of people around the table delivers the best with this technology, which is often like, because, in the public sector, we found, well, the statistic is that 88% of projects never move out of pilot. And so we've done we've done a couple of the 12% that have.
Congratulations.
I know, we're very, very proud of our 12%. And it's like that sort of piece has been done by having mixed disciplinary teams around the table, advising on what they want this to do to solve their problem, not here's a product, get it to fit. And I think that approach, is really useful. I mean, it's contingent on people feeling that they can speak, they can participate, and they're not going to get knocked down or anything like that. But the idea of them putting it around it, the other we've done a lot of data work around specific problems where we've kind of engineered the data sets so static data sets, not kind of ever evolving ones, but they could be one day. Engineered them and then trained an LLM as to what they are, and then used the LLM for the insight piece. And again, never to use it as like the junior researcher role. But what's interesting there is you get more insights than you know what to do with very quickly. So it could be within a couple of days you have enough information to do some, then you've actually got time and money to then do the actions on the back of. And we had one the other day where it's like we were tasked with finding 3 instances of something, and we actually came back with 3,500. And it was like, did we get this wrong? Let's just rerun everything from start to finish. And again, that's where that whole thing of like knowing what you're looking for and how it should look.
Yeah.
And then you kind of go, no, actually, this is disproportionately huge. But that never would have been possible with purely a data team or a digital team, because there's so many things, so many factors at play. We would have found 3, but the combined team, we found that 3,500. So I think there's a lot of sense in what you say, I feel.
Oh, thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
So the other thing, going back to completely radical ideas, the other thing that I would love to see is database teams being able to have a budget in appeal mailings. So let's say you're spending £10,000 on sending your summer appeal. We're coming into summer.
Yeah.
You're spending £10,000 on your summer appeal. I would love organisations to take £1,000 of that budget and say, here, database team, tell me who we're going to send this £1,000 and actually be able to test, because they're so close to the data that they're never allowed because it's so outside the norm.
The risk of, but that is very odd.
What?
If they're not, I mean, like it's if you're looking at kind of like in commercial settings, you've got more, your data and insights team are the people who are able to come up with that, to kind of look at how it fits together. Or is this a third sector thing?
I was just going to say the charity sector is slow to change.
That is interesting.
And they are very used to doing, this is how we've always done it.
Yeah.
And it's like, but if you tweak this bit, something will change.
Yeah.
And it may be an absolute flop, but you've learnt something.
You would have learned, and also it goes back to that point of like getting it to the closest to the front line as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
That element of, quite often when you talk to data teams, you'll be like, right, can we do this? And they'll be like, no, you can't for all of these very good reasons.
Yeah.
But actually then that kind of leads to a point where you're constrained, but you can use that constraint to define a more creative answer.
But that's the thing. So I was sitting in a room of chief execs and heads of digital transformation, and I said, the question is the fundamental bit that you don't understand how a database person thinks about it, and you just need to try and see it from the other side. So the question I posed is, how many of you have sat in a room and said to your database team, I want a list of everybody who's given over £3,000 in the last 3 years. And it seems like a really, really simple thing to do. But when you break it down, it's like a list of people. So individuals only or organisations, £3,000, 3 years. So financial years, calendar years, when are we starting? When are we stopping? If anybody's given recently, in or out? What are we excluding? There's no mention of exclusion. So are we mailing major donors and all the people that we've got personal relationships with? Are we happy to mail the trustees? Because they, in theory, would have given that. None of it is there. And that's why data people, they're not being obstinate for the sake of being obstinate. They're just doing exactly the same as what AI would do, which is, let's be clear.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. As in, there's a lot of things that are just taken either contextually or not said, implicit, kind of assumptions in there. If you don't flag them up, it will. I mean, at least when it's a human doing it, you can reasonably assume what the human's going to do. When it's an AI doing it, you're not always sure where it's going to go.
Exactly.
I mean, it's that idea of you didn't say I couldn't, and then you kind of end up in a whole
and none of it is about purpose. So in that example that I gave, it's like, well, what are you doing? If you're mailing them, do we have mailing consent for them? You didn't ask about any of that.
It's also that idea of, well, if you've got everyone around the table and they're coming from very different perspectives, you do need to give people a clear sense of where it is that you're trying to go.
Exactly.
So, so they can play their part with it.
Yeah.
And again, I think with this sort of, with AI being able to unpick and build and do things quite quickly and at scale, it kind of, if it's a very powerful tool, you need to be very clear on your strategy, because a tool is tactically valid. So therefore, you've really got to work out. So if you've got a very powerful drill, you really want to be sure where you're going to drill the holes on the plan, because without a plan, you're just making a mess of stuff. And it's like that sort of, and it is interesting. Data's being kind of put in it. Everyone says data's the spine of stuff and big data. And, big data's been around for 15 years now, 15, 17 years. Mm. And, really, is there greater awareness of what it is or how it fits, or especially kind of like within organisational structures where you've got people asking questions that aren't aligning to it. It's an interesting one.
When you talk about strategy, one of the first things that 9 times out of 10 comes up when I talk about strategy is, do we have a definitions document? If you ask 3 charities within a 3-mile radius of here, what's your definition of active? You'll get at least 5 different answers.
So that brings me on to the the menu idea of data.
There you go.
So
it stuck with you. That's always good.
It did. So the menu idea of data is, if there should be common recipes for data.
Exactly.
And that should be, sort of sector specific, maybe like third sector specific, or at least organisation.
Yeah, and maybe verticals within that. So if you're an animal charity, you may want fosters or carers and the rest of it. If you're end of life, the way that you talk to next of kins is very different to somebody who's taken part in a challenge event.
Why is it that charities, so if you look at what the cancer charities kind of did in forming together a wider cause across their messaging and kind of like research, why can't that flow across to data and fundraising?
Because, God, this is going to sound really negative, because nobody takes the time to understand it. It's complicated. Data isn't complicated if you're willing to invest some time in it.
It's the it's the detail part of it, or is it the interplay between different things?
I think it's the historically marketing has always been about the numbers. It's like, I know I'm going to get success if I mail 50,000 people, because we know by increasing the number, we're obviously going to increase the revenue. Historically, that's how marketing's been. Now we're much more in the space of behavioural marketing, whereas you should actually build relationships with these people and then work out what they want. It's one of the things, again, I said this in a room of people, how many people on their donation forms at the end of a donation process go, why did you donate today? Just find out. Because that leads you into a very different conversation.
It's this sort of idea of like good, better, best.
Yes, exactly.
And you kind of...
I'll buy that.
Yeah. So you've kind of got the numbers game, then you've got the behavioural game. I think that sort of intent-based piece where you're like trying to understand what's going on. I mean, it is interesting to see how often, again, that kind of that interplay with AI, but asking... AI can be quite good at giving you some of the perceived intent bits. So, you could kind of say, well, look, I've got a group of people here. Why do you think that they did this? And you can then get a sense. Now, sometimes it'll come back and you'll be like, that's absolute nonsense. Sometimes you look at it and go, oh, that is something I wouldn't have thought of. Or potentially go, hang on, that feels about right. And then that's where, it could map up to your own research.
I was going to say, AI is a prime example. I'm a big fan of data blending. I've said this with you a number of times before. I'm a big fan of taking what you've got in your CRM and your fundraising data and overlaying it with other data sets.
Yeah.
If we take the example that you were just talking about, taking your communications calendar, taking your website content, taking social media listening, using AI to blend those together is likely to give you an idea, a better idea, rather than just going, these 5 people donated today. What was that about? Sorry.
As soon as you get 2 data sets together that have never been put together before, you find out something new.
So long as you're curious.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's kind of, and also you can use AI to accelerate that bit of it.
Absolutely.
And again, it's trying to work out the why behind it and putting it all together. Okay. So what you're saying is that there's a lack of curiosity around data in some areas, or is that?
I think I'm being controversial again. I think people are time poor.
Yeah.
And therefore I don't think they've got the time to just look at it and be curious. I think when you're time poor, you just want an answer. And I feel that a lot of the sector just wants to be spoon-fed the answer. They don't want to. They want to be discovered while they're sitting on there. Yeah,
it's so it's funny because you kind of look at other areas, and there's a lot of people who are investing huge amounts of time and money, looking at being curious about the data, because within there they've seen value, either perceive it being there or they've seen it demonstrated. I mean.
And we're moving into a space now where top down people are going, AI is the next big thing. We need to invest more time in it. We need to do a data strategy. We need to do a tech strategy. The one thing that they're not doing is freeing up people to do this thing like Google did. Here's a pet project. Here's every Friday for a fortnight, every other Friday, where you can go off and investigate. And we're going to clear your diary, and you're not going to have meetings, and you're just going to spend a couple of hours just looking at something that you care about. That is where we would, if we got to somewhere like that, curiosity would be better.
So we've been talking to people who are like innovators, and there's a whole thing about the future of work and the future of where we're going to go when, you know, AI is a disruptive thing. Where you've got something that's giving you time back, how do you then spend that time? Is it more of the same, or is it doing something totally different? And potentially this is a space where you could kind of get into it. But it's,
if it's just for a finite amount of time. I mean, I say to my team when they're struggling for time, have you thought about 30 and 30? So for 30 days, they get 30 minutes to go off and do whatever it is that they're struggling to fit in their normal working week.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's terrible, and sometimes just having 2.5 hours to spike something actually means we've got an idea of where we're going. Yeah,
it's a different way of looking at things, I suppose. I mean, again, you know, to reflect back, looking at how you structure teams, getting rid of a digital team, allowing that curiosity. I think, you know, what's holding back the sector? Is it something that is it a risk aversion? Is it a, you know, lack of time? Clearly, you kind of hit upon that, or is it a having to do more with less? Or
I think that having to do more with less is a valid piece. I think the other thing that worries me, scares me, makes me think, is where you're combining roles. So obviously in the charity sector, we've seen a lack of funding across the board. We've seen roles being combined. So there are some roles that make sense. So there are some roles that I still look at and go, I don't understand how a person can cover that much stuff. And a prime example of that is digital data and tech. So if you're a digital person, do you really know how to build a network server? Do you really understand bandwidth? Do you understand the whole technological infrastructure type stuff? But as a director of digital data and tech, that's the 3 key areas that you're trying to be responsible for. As a head of data, do I understand how the website works? Do I care in the grand scheme of things? When you combine that role, and I get why we have to do that, but the skill sets are very, very different. And so, again, people are moving on up the chain, which is great and fine, but I'm just not I'm not confident that people are willing to ask for help when they get stuck at that, and they just are happy for the pay rise and all the other stuff that goes with the bigger job title. But it's just it's a lot.
The way there's a lot of ground to cover in that sort of setup, and presumably there's not massive teams underneath them.
No, and we're seeing the same thing in fundraising. We're seeing fundraising, marketing, communications becoming teams. And again, historically, they were 3 different things because they had 3 different responsibilities.
But with that, would the flip to say you're in charge, you have people from those elements, those disciplines, but focused on one use case, one purpose.
But what's happening?
That would be a different...
Exactly that. So if you took digital data and tech, or if you took fundraising, marketing and communications, and did this matrix idea of working, there's every chance it's going to succeed because you build the right agile team to be able to put all of those points together. What we're seeing is at the top of the tree, you've got a director of fundraising, marketing and communications with 3 separate strands of teams underneath them. In my view, and this is going to be controversial, rip it up, start again, and think about the audience that you're serving.
Yeah. I mean, for those who have they seen a tangible difference in the impact and the outcomes of that?
I'm not sure that many people have stuck with it.
Okay. I think that sort of organisational memory kind of pulls it back into where it was before.
Exactly. It's hard.
Yeah. So what next? If that is the state of play at the moment, where you think...
We're all going to hell in a handcart, Adam.
I know, but after that...
So when you're in charge, when you're Prime Minister, is that what you're asking for?
I wouldn't want to... That's your first mistake. Can you imagine? It'd just be like... Well, there'd be a lot more... computers.
There would be. There would be a lot more decisions made.
There'd be a lot more. Yeah, not necessarily the right one.
I never said that. I mean,
I can't imagine. I mean, you look at it. I think in terms of jobs and matrix thinking, that's quite a big one when you've got all the stuff going on. But we're digressing. No,
sorry.
So
Apologies.
What? Nice try, Sunshine. What next?
What next for me?
No, I mean, like for the
sector?
Yeah, for the sector in terms of that. And, well, if that happens to segue with you, I mean, that would be good.
The sector is struggling, and it's struggling for a lack of funding. We know that there's next to no money around at the moment. We know that people are finding it hard. We know I wouldn't want to be a fundraiser in 2026. It's proper hard work. But what I do want to do is support people who are doing that job as much as possible. I think people are going to be using AI. I think people are already using AI for things like funding bids. I mean, we're seeing lots of trusts and foundations saying we've had a huge number of increase in applications, and that's because AI has made it easier to make an application.
Yeah.
What I feel at the moment is that people are using AI in a very point-to-point solution rather than making it a loop. So like, for example, trust applications. People will get to write a trust application in a first draft, but they'll never go back in and say, okay, so based on your first draft, this is the actual one that we sent across. Can you take some learnings from this so it actually improves? Because then we build a funnel that looks like AI gets better. And I think that's the same thing. It's like I've said to you before about job interviews. I think there are lots of people out there who use AI for when they're trying to write their covering letter or their CV. How many of you actually run that back in and go, okay, so based on this covering letter and based on this CV and based on this job advert, what's my likelihood of actually getting the job? And if not, tweak it. Because 9 times out of 10 where we are now is CVs and covering letters are probably going to be read by AI to do the initial selection. Because like we've seen, in the same way that we've got trusts and foundations making applications and huge increases, we're seeing the same thing with recruitment. AI is here to stay. I think it's a good thing. I think there's lots of scaremongering. I think we're over the scaremongering thing. And I think we're at a stage now where people will definitely start embracing it. I don't think organizations have got an AI strategy. And I think that's going to be a challenge because you'll just get, even if you say, no, you're not allowed to use AI, people will just use it personally.
Yeah, there's the rise of the shadow IT, isn't it? The shadow AI, where people are, well, they've kind of seen the benefit of it in other contexts. So, it makes sense to do it. And I think, the third sector's got this opportunity, hasn't it? Where when you start putting bits together, so that sort of not the point end-to-end piece, but thinking not the direct thing, but how can you put things together? And like if you're a fundraiser and you've sent out a campaign and then you've seen from your data team being able to tell you who's donated, and then from that you can kind of say, well, actually, where's commonalities of what are the themes here, or indeed just kind of saying, well, look, we know that here's someone who always donates when there's a campaign around. If it's an animal charity, when there's a cat on the or a dog, or and then so let's make the next one more focused on that. It's kind of, and you can actually move to this whole world of like hyper personalizing stuff in the way that I'm sure a lot of those bids or grants that have gone out there, one would hope that the AI is writing it in a less generic way, whereas before, if people were doing it en masse, they'd just be cutting and pasting and tweaking a few words here or there, whereas this is. I think it's like another evolution of what's going on. But it would be good to get the third sector, kind of into a place where the work that's going on kind of helps to alleviate some of those structural issues that are kind of going and working through. Is that where does AI sit in a charity then?
Secretly, normally.
Yeah. And it's not, should it be with the digital team, the CEO's office, the comms team, or should it be everywhere? Everywhere and nowhere? Or, like you say, like get rid of the digital team, therefore have it everywhere?
I'm a big fan of collaboration, and I'm a big fan of transparency. I am quite happy to admit a good proportion of my work now is undertaken by AI in its first draft, whatever that may be, whether that's blog content, whether that's website content, whether that's emails. If I've got a tricky email to send, I'll use it for that. Yeah. If I've got a proposal to write, I will use it for proposal writing. It just saves time. I've never been a wordsmith. I am all about ones and zeros. If you ask me to write code, I have no problem with ones and zeros. If you ask me to write a paper, I begin to panic. But that's the good thing about things like this. Yeah. Things like transcription services. It's been around for ages. I mean, we used to use things like Drag and Dictate. Do you remember Drag and Dictate?
I never had the pleasure, no.
Oh, Drag and Dictate. It was a brilliant piece of software. You could actually talk, in the days before you couldn't talk to Microsoft Word, you could talk to Microsoft Word, and it was half decent at doing some transcription services.
I think it was a different sort of setup. I would often have, so I used to sell very big websites.
Right.
And you would find that clients would, as you would expect, have common requirements. And you would also have common solutions to common requirements. So you would have standard just bits of like template, like copy, like boilerplate. So you would load, you'd find the right bits, you cut and paste it into a document, and then you'd rewrite that document so it actually
flowed.
And also spoke to their specific requirements. So, it's like 80% the same, that final 20%. And that, that would take weeks and weeks to kind of get all the right bits.
And that's the thing. So we're seeing a lot of that in things like CRM procurement projects.
Yeah.
And you only know that an AI has written that procurement proposal, RFP, based on how thorough it is.
Yeah. It's very credulous and it's very comprehensive.
Yeah.
And it kind of does pull together. And also there are no typos.
Yes. I know somebody who said, just introduce as part of their prompting process. And I think this is one of the things that if there were going to be courses in the next 6 months, 12 months, prompt engineering is one of the key things for the sector.
That's an interesting one because we did a session called "Getting the Most Out of Basic AI" for Public Sector AI Week, and it was one of the most popular, like non-big ticket name events.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
And on the back of that, we were about to pull together a whole load of resources and a whole load of that. And actually, it was just this moment of clarity of going, no, let's not give people loads of stuff to read. Let's just give them one slide on how to write a really good prompt. And that was one of the bits that we kind of covered off in the session. But actually, just that one thing can, again, it's funny because that was one of the first things that people wanted AI training to do. It's kind of gone off in different directions, and we do a lot of strategic stuff as well. But that idea of one good prompt gets you kind of everywhere. Yeah. That idea of a Swiss Army knife, not a plastic fork, a Swiss Army knife that kind of allows you to kind of get there, I think is useful. And it is interesting that kind of like that idea that the third sector, which, I mean, traditionally used to be a real hotbed of innovation. I mean, there were things going through in the third sector, kind of like in the 80s, 90s, noughties, that were really, kind of like they adopted direct mail marketing almost as avidly as the big supermarket chains, and kind of like the whole idea of like CRM and using it in innovative ways. But it seems to have ossified or kind of slowed down a bit.
I think so. Again, innovation costs money.
Yeah.
And you can't guarantee innovation is going to raise money. And so when people are going through budgets and stuff, it's the first thing that if you can't guarantee income, it's a challenge.
So you're talking to a charity CEO, and they're like, well, that's finance, but you've also hit upon the issue, which is I have no money.
Yeah.
What do I do? And don't say get more money. I mean, what is the thing that they can do that kind of allows you to, it sounds like a system stuck. How is it unjammed?
So I think, like with everything that I ever talk about in terms of training, start small, and know that you're not going to break anything. So make sure you've got risk factors nailed down. So you've got backups of your database if you're going to mess around in your database. You've got a training environment. You've got this, that, and the other. One of the things that we did for people who just can't afford consultancy services was we built Craft. And that's for data curious type people, where they could go and get checklists and resources, and there's stuff in there around training in terms of if you've fallen into a database role and don't actually understand database management and all of the other side of database management, there's a couple of courses in there around that. There are some micro apps, like we said right at the top of this. I've done some vibe coding. I've vibe coded a couple of apps around data quality that I say are for the charity sector. They're for anybody who wants to use them. Yeah. They basically just take a file. You can upload a file. It all stays on your machine, so it's all GDPR compliant and stuff. And you upload that data, and it will give you a data quality report. It will give you lists and tell you how good, bad, indifferent your data is. Yeah. Just to put you on the right journey, because you all remember this, the house that was built on sand is not going to do anybody any favors. No. That's the same when you start pushing AI. If your data is poor, you're just going to get poor results. Yeah. And it's almost like from the CEO's point of view, then it's not even an expensive exercise that they need to go on. It's something that it's about freeing up, that it's more about the time than the money to and also giving people the permission to be curious, and especially in those roles. Yeah, but exactly. But again, it's kind of like for a fundraising campaign to just open up a bit of budget for the people who are closest to kind of experiment or to come up with an idea. I mean, it may not work. Fascinated. But, I'd be fascinated to see how different a database team would do a selection. I mean, even if it's just with the remaining pot of people, so long as they've got compliance, and postal mailings are relatively easy for compliance because most people are using legitimate interest for it, then there are other characteristics within the database of people who have not been selected. The database team may be going, what about this? Let's try this. And again, like you say, it's a permission thing. It's like, okay, you didn't just waste £1,000. We learned something. Yeah. Which is maybe we won't give £1,000 to the database team ever again. That could be. That's a valid probably lesson. Not. That could be. But at least you've tried something. Yeah. Going back to innovation. Innovation isn't a product. It isn't a thing. It's just trying something. Yeah. It's fail faster. Yeah. So true. And also, it's kind of like that idea of with the technology that we're starting to see now. That idea of like maybe you went so far, you stopped and you started again from scratch, but you started again faster. It's kind of the process, the output of that process can help facilitate or accelerate the next round of it. Exactly. And again, like that idea of it helps with the little guy. You can do it. You can kind of have a bigger impact using this stuff. And again, that was going back to Craft. Sorry, this feels like a sales call. I apologise. That's fine. I mean, I like Craft. I think we've. I think I've had a go at it. Nice, but that was the point of it. It was built. There's 170,000 charities, 168,000 charities according to Charity Commission, in the UK. Most of them are small, individual fundraisers. Individual people, and it's like, if your job is everything from clearing the bins to doing a data selection, you're just going to need something that's just going to point in the right direction. And that stuff, the stuff that's in Craft, was built by us consultants based on our relationship. And I've worked with people from Cancer Research UK through to little hospices and little one-man band type charities. And it's just poured into my care for the sector, my care for data is poured into Craft. And I would love to see it be the home for data people. And if people have got problems that they can't find a solution to, I'm quite happy to listen to that and just see what we can do. Sounds brilliant. I think we'll end on that note. That's lovely. Thanks, that's a lovely thing. And I think this is a time for new ideas, and clearly something's not quite working in the sector overall, and there seems to be some strange things going on. But
with fresh thinking and innovative approaches, and also kind of saying, well, some of them will work, some of them won't. But taking that forward, innovation can be had and found, and the benefits of that hopefully prosper across the sector.
That's exactly it.
Be cool. All right then.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks so much.